Bienvenidos al capítulo 4 en familia, parte 1. In this chapter, you are going to be talking about family, discuss what you have to do, describe daily routines. So, a primera vista, the first section of this chapter, we're going to be looking at los miembros de la familia. And on page 124, en la página 124, we're going to see a few paragraphs here, and it's titled Los miembros de la familia. However, for whatever reason in this textbook, they don't give you an actual list of these different words, a vocabulary list, which I find, especially for a beginner level, to be very strange. So I've taken the liberty to put several of the words that you see in the paragraphs up here on the slide. And we have here abuelos, nietos, padres, hijos, hijas, hermanos, padrino, okay, or padrinos, which would be godfathers, or yes, godparents. And so if you do see any other word on here, and I always say this for vocabulary, feel free to look up, use Google Translate, Word Reference, or any other Spanish dictionary access that you might have. It's actually better to look up these words rather than just have them spoon-fed to you. It really helps better. It helps quite a bit with retention. So keep that in mind. So on the page 127, so 127, ¿qué hacen los parientes? All right, and here we have a few other paragraphs as well, and so you get to see some of these words here in context. But some of the words, again, they don't really tell you explicitly what it is they mean. This textbook, it tends to not want to do that a lot of times with vocabulary. So we have here pasear, almorzar, dormir la siesta, visitar, parientes, juntos. Okay, so you're going to see some other words, and I strongly urge you to look up the rest on Google Translate or Word Reference, again, or any other pocket dictionary, Spanish, English dictionary you might have. Okay, and so this is just kind of looking at la familia, but things that the family does on a typical basis within a household. Okay. Las rutinas familiares on page 128, 128. And so here we have rutinas familiares. We're going to be looking at a new kind of verb and just using it just a tiny bit. And that's going to be called a reflexive verb. Okay, and so we see this paragraph here on page 128, and it says, En casa de Pablo hay mucha actividad por la mañana. Los niños se despiertan a las 7, se levantan, se lavan y luego desayunan en la cocina con sus padres. Después salen para la escuela. So here we see a few different things we have not seen up to this point. We have here se despiertan, se levantan, se lavan. Okay? And so what these are called is reflexive verbs. And we use reflexive verbs often in a very common sense to describe routines, daily routines. But in this chapter, we don't really go so far into that as far as I'm going to explain right now. But it is important to have a good idea as to what it is that we're using here and why we're using it. Okay, so let's look here. So a reflexive verb is used to indicate that the subject does something to or for himself or herself. In other words, it reflects the action of the verb back to the subject. Reflexive verbs always use reflexive pronouns. Okay, so for example here, Joaquín se ducha por la mañana. And so we see this here. This is going to reflect the action of the verb back to the subject, and the subject here is Joaquín. Okay? So in a sense it's saying Joaquín takes a shower in the morning, or Joaquín showers himself in the morning. The verb lavarse, this is one that is used here in a paragraph. And just to give you a quick rundown, and again, this is more information than what you need at this point. The book is only going to focus on the third person singular for this chapter and the third person plural. Se lava, he or she washes himself or herself. Or se lavan, they wash themselves. Or you wash yourselves. Se lavan. So we have here the reflexive pronouns of me, te, se, nos, se. Okay? And again, vosotros here, don't be confused with this. This is just commonly used in Spain, and I actually tended to shy away from it just a little bit and not use it in beginner level courses because really it's only used in Spain, and it's an extra conjugation that we can omit to make things just a bit more simple. Okay, so keep that in mind. So keep in mind one thing, and that's very important, is that we are only using for this chapter, chapter 4, se lava, se lavan, so this third person singular, third person plural, and that you later on down the road in Spanish, you're definitely going to incorporate this. But in this chapter about family, the book wanted to include daily routines, so that's the reason why. Okay. So, to continue, the pronoun se attached to an infinitive identifies the verb as reflexive, okay? And so the total verb for washing, in this case, is lavarse, lavarse. Okay, and we're going to get more into this the deeper we go into Spanish, but I think this will help you with some of the activities that we have here on this section of this chapter, okay? Again, any questions, let's meet on Skype, send me an email, and we'll figure it out together. When a reflexive verb is conjugated, the reflexive pronoun agrees with the subject. Okay, and again, we're going to go more in depth later on with this, but you'll see this in the book with se followed by a third person conjugated verb. But here we have here me afeito, which is like I shave myself. Te despiertas a las 7. You wake yourself up at 7. Okay? And that is the end of the first part. Es la fin de la primera parte. Okay? Again, any questions, send me an email. Let's talk through Skype. Let's figure this stuff out together. And again, I will have part 2 up here in just a bit. Okay, so as soon as you finish studying this section for part 1, please proceed to part 2. Okay, la parte 2 del capítulo 4. Okay, gracias.